I'm Bobby Hinn, and let's queer up politics. LGBTQ plus icon Trailblazer, Barney Frank dies at 86 after decades of shaping gay representation in Congress. Frank died Tuesday at his home in Maine after entering hospice care with congestive heart failure. The longtime Massachusetts congressman made history in 1987 when he became the first member of Congress to voluntarily come out as gay while in office. His decision marked a major turning point for LGBTQ plus visibility in American politics. Frank told the Boston Globe in 2011, quote, "Prejudice is based on ignorance, and the best way to counterbalance it is with a living example, with reality," end quote. During his career, Frank pushed for queer equality while facing repeated attacks from political opponents. In 1995, Republican House Majority Leader Dick Armey referred to him as Barney Fag, later claiming it was accidental. In 2006, Republican John Hostettler accused Frank of promoting a, quote, "radical homosexual agenda," end quote. Frank responded to each slur and attack by defending equal rights for LGBTQ Americans, including marriage equality, military service, and workplace protections. In 2012, at age 72, Frank married Jim Reddy, becoming the first sitting member of Congress to marry someone of the same sex. He also pushed for same-sex partners to receive the same recognition as spouses of other lawmakers at official events. Frank also believed in outing a closeted politician while they were using their position to harm LGBT people. Some of his statements created controversies, including his final interview from hospice care, where Frank urged Democrats to shift focus away from some transgender sports issues while still supporting trans healthcare access and gender recognition rights. Nevertheless, Barney Frank will always be one of the leaders who paved the way for future generations of openly queer leaders in public office. Well, I do have an anecdote, but Alex is going to have a more important one. But I do have.
Tell us your story.
I have an anecdote for that is related to Barney Frank. In the late 90s, when I was a wee boy, I was checking to see where to go to college, and Boston actually is the place I chose primarily because Barney Frank's openness of being gay signals to me that state is probably the least of all evils when it comes to queer representation. And as a queer person, I know that I want to be there just because that, I don't want to go somewhere where I will be unrecognized or worse, have violence inflicted upon our community. And so for me, and the fact that actually I have friends from college who actually are from Cape Cod, which is where his district is, was very important. And Alex, I understand that you actually know Barney.
Yeah. Well, I've met him, and our investigative reporter team may have uncovered some special evidence about Barney Frank and I, where that is me introducing Barney Frank at the 2003 Massachusetts Youth Pride event. I remember meeting him. He's very big on making sure you say the correct things about him, so he would have reminded me to tell you that it was Gary Stubbs who you were thinking about that represented Cape Cod. His district was the original gerrymandered district, and he reminded me to make sure I said that he wasn't the first gay congressman, the first one to voluntarily come out because of Gary Stubbs. He was very sweet, though. Always a fun guy. In fact, I think we should take 2 seconds to think about some of the funniest things he's ever said. In response to being called Barney Fag and the man saying it was a mistake, Barney responded to people being like, I called up my mother and said, "How many times have you accidentally been called fag?" "Not once." Isn't that weird? Then, when trying to deal with the activists who did not want healthcare expanded, who would say stupid things like, "Get your hands off my Medicare," he would remind people that talking to them is like talking to a dining room table. And then I will say with this last interview he did before he passed away, I had to chuckle because Barney is a very fun person. He was talking about his book coming out, and he's like, "Well, I'm on a tight deadline." No joke, he was talking about he was on a deadline. And the other story I'll mention is a friend of mine, not related to Barney Frank. He's the former city council president of Chelsea, Massachusetts. Our friend Steve Driscoll, who's a big LGBTQ rights activist in Massachusetts, who knows Barney and also has a home in Wilton Manors, he put Matt Frank up to picking Barney Frank up for an event and gave Barney Frank Matt's cell phone number. And Barney Frank was like, I'm not, it's raining, so I don't want to go. But then, anytime Barney Frank had a question about Chelsea, Massachusetts, he would call up poor Matt, and Matt felt like he had to be an aide and get the question. I always get a kick out of that, how Barney could just call people up. So there's a loving history. There's definitely more of his legacy we can get into in this discussion, but those are just some sweet anecdotes. He's just a very funny guy, and it's just sad to see him go.
Well, he also had legislation with his name on it, like Dodd-Frank, which actually helped regulate banks after the Great Recession.
Not just regulate banks, he helped create the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Like, you know, he had a very big legacy. When you're looking at Democrats and like, what are the good Democrat versus a do-nothing Democrat? Barney Frank actually passed legislation. He also, we were talking about in the show, he did something that I wish more Democrats would do. He retired before 86. He retired when he was 72 or 73 years old. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if Chuck Schumer took that advice, or if Nancy Pelosi had taken that advice, or if so many other countless Democrats? So if Joe Biden had done that, we wouldn't be in the current situation we're in right now.
Yeah, I would just have to say, thank you, Barney Frank, for all you've done for our community and the country in general. I think, it shows a lot when, no matter what party you're in, he displayed a great sense of humor. He, responded with humor many times, and I think that's a great legacy to leave behind.
And I think that Matt anecdote. By the way, hi Frank. Hi Matt. Yeah, but the thing is, this is about a congressperson. He bothers Matt because he wants to work for his constituents. There are a lot of representatives these days who are basically holed up either in D.C. or in their own little campaign office and refuse to respond to constituent requests. And I think that's a very important thing, that when you got elected, you are working for the people, not just a paycheck from the feds.
The whole having to tell a woman talking to you is like talking to a dining room table. That was a town hall meeting. Something that, like a congressman down here, Jared Moskowitz, he's been getting indivisible, keeps hitting him for not doing a town hall. And how many Republicans have never done a town hall? Barney Frank would do it. You have to be aware that, like, mess with Barney Frank, he's going to go right back at you, though. Well, the other thing, looking at his legacy, I will discuss, like, I think his advice to the Democratic Party is great advice for 1996, not 2026. But also, one of the things I love about Barney Frank is he's so the type that would hash it out with you. And I just, my sympathy to everyone I know in Massachusetts who's mourning him right now, and all of us at Queer News Tonight. He really was a legend for the LGBTQ community. And, and on that we say, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.